July 18th, 1999, Carnoustie, Scotland. Jean van der Velde is about to go down in golfing history. But first, let's rewind back to where it all began. Born in May 1966 in Mont-de-Marsan, France, Jean van der Velde represented his country at all levels of amateur golf. He turned professional at age 21 with an impressive handicap of +2. After gaining his tour card at the qualifying school, he had to wait 5 years before experiencing his first triumph when he won the Roma Masters in a playoff. That win, however, did not herald the start of a winning streak. Quite the opposite, in fact. Between then and the infamous Carnoustie fiasco, Jean's best finishes were 3 second places. Like most, Jean qualified for the Open in local qualifying. He was ranked 153rd in the world rankings, and frankly, nobody had ever heard of him. But that was all about to change. After his second round performance at Carnoustie, van der Velde topped the leaderboard 1 shot clear of Angel Cabrera and 2 shots ahead of Jasper Panovic. Following a 1-under third round, van der Velde held a 5-shot lead over Justin Leonard and Craig Parry. The tournament was essentially his for the taking, and it appeared that way until the 18th hole, when van der Velde held a 3-shot lead stepping up onto the tee. The Frenchman never strayed away from his week-long aggressive approach and hit driver on the 18th, a move heavily criticised by most. His tee shot sailed right but got lucky, landed in an open spot on the 17th hole. He then went with a 2-iron, blasting the ball towards the hole. It caromed off the bleachers, hit the top of a stone wall, and landed in the thick grass on the other side of the moat-like burn. Jean had a very difficult lie on his third shot, and had to clear the Barry burn. He didn't. The ball landed in the water and seemingly appeared to float for a few minutes as the Frenchman removed his shoes and prepared to hit the ball out. Ultimately, he decided against it and took a drop. On his 5th shot, he hit the ball into the greenside bunker. After his bunker shot, Jean drained a clutch putt to make it into a 3-way playoff with Paul Lowry and Justin Leonard. The pressure, however, was too great. Lowry pulled out the victory and van der Velde finished second, forever making his mark in golf history for one of the biggest collapses the sport has ever seen. Back home in France, the media mocked him. His epic collapse made headlines for days. The golfer who was so close to etching his name in the history books as one of France's greatest ever golfers had his name forever recorded in the history books, but for a completely different and embarrassing reason. A few months later, however, the reaction was very different at the club where van der Velde regularly played. In the club's golf school for kids, enrollment typically ranges between 10 to 15 young players. That September, following van der Velde's showing at the Open Championship, more than 100 kids showed up. They wanted to be like Jean. Golfing was cool in their eyes. His runner-up spot at the Open lifted him to 13th place in the Order of Merit and onto the Ryder Cup team at Brookline. Jean was the first Frenchman to ever compete in a Ryder Cup, but unfortunately for him was on the losing side, narrowly losing out to Team USA 14.5 to 13.5, losing his only match 6-5 to Davis Love III. In the new millennium, Jean was struck by injuries for several years, some saying it was more mental than anything else. Understandable considering the trauma he had been through. He also had time out with a knee injury from a skiing accident that required 2 surgical reconstructions and eventually lost his tour card. He did, however, finally make a comeback at the 2005 Open de France, where he brutally lost in another playoff to fellow Frenchman Jean-Francois Remesi after once again finding water on the last hole. He got another opportunity in 2006 at the Madeira Open and gained an emotional, long-awaited victory. But this was Jean's last hurrah. The following season he lost his card and never regained it. But it was here that Jean's life began. He got to travel the world and lived in countries like Dubai and Hong Kong. He had time for his family now he wasn't travelling so much, which was extremely important to him. He was heavily involved in the Ryder Cup going to France for the first time, and in 2012 became an ambassador for UNICEF, becoming the 2nd ever Frenchman after Lilian Thuram, using golf to raise funds for mainly poverty-stricken Madagascar. "I've been there, and I've seen the evolution of what the money has been able to do," he told the Golf Channel. "It's very fulfilling. It's an eye-opener, and it doesn't take much to realise the future of all of us is really in our youth. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but it has to be the priority." Jean has recently dipped his toes back into the water of professional golf. He admitted he has only been playing 10 to 20 casual rounds over the past few years, so his expectations are really low. His desire to compete remains, and van der Velde wants to do it again against familiar foes. He wanted to do it again against guys he's been playing with for years and join the seniors tour. Although he hasn't won yet, he now does it for the love of the game. He's earned a bit of money, but can now pick and choose when he wants to play. He played in this year's Senior Open Championship but failed to make the cut. Jean will continue his great support for UNICEF and the French Open, and also helping young French kids get into the game of golf. A little bit of Jean van de Velde will always live on at Carnoustie, but his legacy for the youth and charity will live on much longer.